Welcome back to Second Chance Shed. I'm going to today I'm going to be doing a bit of a clean under the bonnet of my Triton, and you can just see how dirty it is. This is what happens when you go on a mud track and it's quite wet and you go through a few mud holes. You'll be surprised how much mud and just debris gets under your bonnet. So the point of today's video is just to sort of show you how to clean under the bonnet and do it without hopefully causing any damage to anything. So you can see where a lot of the mud has come from. It's really like a big splash, and a lot of it would have come from underneath and hit underneath the bonnet and splashed back down onto the engine cover. You know, it's sitting on top of sort of like the manifold and the turbo a little bit. The airbox, it's been splashed as well. And if you move over here, you've got the fan shroud. It's got a lot of stuff here. The battery, I'm gonna have to clean this, but I don't want to sort of get too much water on top of this. It's not a good idea really to sort of saturate the electrical components when you're washing something. Even though it looks pretty bad, and there is, you know, as you can see, there's mud down there as well. It's sort of superficial. It hasn't been here very long. It's not caked on mud, it's just from splashing, and it shouldn't really take too much to get it off. I'm not going to use a high pressure hose like a gurney or something like that. I'm just going to use your garden hose on sort of maybe a jet function, but I will probably take a little bit of care to sort of cover up this battery, maybe with a plastic bag. I know people say that you should try to cover everything up so that you don't want to get wet, and that is not a bad idea, but I'm going to have a hard time getting a plastic bag over the alternator down there, so that's not really too much of an option. There's also the discussion about whether you should have the engine running or not, and it seems to be a pretty 50-50 sort of sided argument. Have it on, have it running, or have it off but just only clean the engine and the engine bay on a hot dry day, and that's why I've picked today. So I'm going to have the engine turned off actually. I think the main crux of the question about having the engine running or not is how long is it going to take for everything to dry, and on a hot day like this it shouldn't take very long for the engine to dry. Another Land Cruiser going by, no surprise. So you can do with just a hose down, nothing too aggressive. We've got electrical wiring. You don't want to get too enthusiastic about spraying that, and really just try to spray from above if you can, not too directly at individual things. So that's probably a good little tour of under the bonnet. I'll probably start hosing and cleaning under the actual bonnet itself first, and then we'll go and have a go at the whole engine. Okay, so back inside the Second Chance Shed, I thought I'd show you just a couple of the products that I'm going to use to wash the engine bay. Just remember, I'm not sponsored or supported by any companies, so what you see is just what I bought, probably based on value for money really, more than anything. Not that I'm going after a particular brand. So let's have a look. You might be surprised, but I've actually got this Muck Off bike cleaner, and I did get this when I bought a bike, and it is intended for cleaning mountain bikes that do downhill and get a bit of muddy. The reason I like to use this on the engine bay is because it's actually biodegradable. It's designed not to be sort of like a solvent so much and have any harsh chemicals in it. Specifically formulated to be safe on disc brake pads, anodizing and paintwork. So that's probably what you want if you're cleaning under your engine. You don't want anything too extreme. So I'm going to use this for the basic clean for all the mud that you saw. What I've done, I've actually diluted this in a spray bottle, about 10:1 ratio, and I'll get sort of more bang for my buck. So I'm going to spray the engine bay with this first and let that soak in for a bit and then spray it off with the hose. Over here we've got this Super Cheap Auto Jumbo Workshop degreaser. It's basically the same sort of idea as the previous sort of video that I put up about the lanolin. They've got them in these jumbo cans, 600 grams as you can see. It's got these really big sort of high velocity sort of nozzles. Oh, here we go, now I stand corrected. It's just got a standard nozzle. So hopefully I can probably get more than one use out of this one. This is a big can and they are a lot cheaper than the lanolin. This cost me about $6 and hopefully I should get a few uses out of this for under the bonnet. And you can see it looks like a Cleveland V8 there from a Ford or something looking really clean. Now for other parts of the engine, once again we've got the Super Cheap Auto brake and parts cleaner. The reason why I think this is a good idea is because it flash dries. It'll clean, it'll basically remove things that have been built up on the engine, and the residue left behind is almost none because it just flash dries. And this is going to do a pretty good job of getting kind of grease and things that have been built up for a long time. Then I've got this Permatex battery cleaner. Now I'm going to cover up the battery with a plastic bag, and then I'm going to use this after I've cleaned the rest of the engine. I found this to be pretty good. You spray it sort of all over the battery, and yeah, it instantly removes the corrosion and any other things. I only use this on my battery. And lastly, I've just got this little sort of abrasive pad on a stick, really. This is just going to help me sort of remove anything that can't be removed just purely by water or a chemical. So some of the stuff where the mud is, it might just be a little bit more built up. So I'll put that down, and we will start with this first. Give it a good spray, let that soak and spray it off. If there's anything I can't remove with this, I'll use this, spray it again. Then I'm going to give the whole engine a big dose of this degreaser, let that sit for a bit, give it a light spray off with the hose. Then if I can still see things that are sitting on the engine that the degreaser didn't get, I'll use this brake and parts cleaner, and lastly I'll do the battery. Hope that's not too confusing. Let's see how we go. So first of all, I'm just going to put this plastic bag over the battery. That's just going to really just prevent too much getting sprayed on there from water. We'll clean that later. Okay, time to give it a bit of a spray down with the detergent. So that's under the bonnet itself, sprayed with the detergent. You can see it does a pretty good job of just removing it, just by spraying it. That's why I do like this product. Let's get to the engine itself. Don't go overboard. Like I said, you want to minimize the need for going and spraying stuff everywhere. Just want a little bit on most places. If you see some mud, well, I'll just give it a little bit of a spray. So I think that's probably a good enough spray of the engine. You can see a lot of the mud has really started to dissolve and come away already. I haven't even used the hose. So I'm going to let this sit just for a few minutes while I set the hose up. So I've got the hose and I've put it on the center sort of setting. You can see what this sort of looks like. Comes out pretty quick, but not too extreme. You don't really want to go beyond that. Alright, let's get this started. So even with just that light spraying, most of it's all gone. It won't take very much at all just to get the rest, all those little bits of mud off there. I'm going to have a go at the engine now. You can see I was doing it in sort of short bursts. You want to minimise the amount of water that you're putting in there. Okay, so if you see, it's pretty clean. Just really sort of by giving it a little bit of detergent and a light spray. I'm going to let this sit just for a little bit in the sun, and then I'm going to start using the degreaser. Right, so before I start using the degreaser, I am just going to use, just dropped it then, just going to use my little brush, as you can see here. Before you do that, just give it a little bit of a wet. These are abrasive, and you don't really want to be really scrubbing off the paint. Because it came up pretty good just with the mild detergent and a bit of sort of elbow grease, I don't have to put much degreaser on. I'm still going to do it. I'm going to spray it around a little bit, let it sit again, and then spray it down. That's the good thing when you use a pretty good quality detergent. It will actually come up pretty clean, as you can see. But I still want to use the degreaser because it will get those bits of grease and grime off that the detergent just simply can't do. So I've let this degreaser sort of soak in for a few minutes, and I can already see it doing its job in some places. I even put some just under the bonnet above where the sort of the engine cover is, where you do get a bit of grease. And I'm just going to give it a quick spray down again. And if there's anything sort of remaining that I just want to have a go at, I'll use the brake cleaner. So this is after the hose down, after the degreaser. I can already see the engine's looking much cleaner, much cleaner. There's a tiny few little spots. We can see it's collecting water. That's why we don't go overboard with the hose and just spraying everything constantly. I do it in the short bursts, but everything I can see, everything's looking just much cleaner. So next I'm going to get some of this brake and parts cleaner. I'm not going to use hardly any of this, and really this is just good for displacing things that you can't really get rid of easily with the degreaser or the hose. Not going to use much of this, just going to be mainly on the engine. Just another little tip about the brake and parts cleaner. If you're in a bind, you can actually use this to give your catch can a bit of a clean out. So that's just a little tip. If you didn't know that, you can pull the filter out of the catch can and use this to spray the filter out and the drain hose as well if you need to. Just a little bit of bonus info. Time for the Permatex battery cleaner. You can see the battery is pretty filthy, but I only use this on my battery. I don't use other chemicals because this is designed for batteries. Give it a good liberal spray down. You can let it sit for about 3 minutes and then just give it a light spray off with water. Right, so you can see that the foam is kind of reduced, and its purpose really is to remove corrosion from terminals, but design it so you can use all over your battery. So I'm going to use a mist setting on the hose. That's more than what's needed to spray it off. So there you go, folks. That's the engine sort of cleaned up, and I think you'd agree that it looks much better. Plastics are all clean. Engine, no more dirt and mud and silt and grime on there, and battery looks good again. So if you enjoyed this, give me a thumbs up, and maybe even subscribe if you want. I'm going to try and get more videos out soon, and I'll see you next time.